Hi, this is Denise.
Hey, this is Maggie.
Welcome to our podcast, Candor and Courage at Work.
Denise and I have known each other for a long time, a couple of decades, HR pros, and we thought it might be helpful if we got together and shared some of the things that we've learned along the way.
That's right, Maggie. Many struggle with being candid and being courageous, and we just want to use what we've learned to help you use those traits in your daily work life.
Here's hoping that makes you more successful. And here we go. Hey, Denise, we're back.
We are back in Studio One, our home base.
Home base, and it's a little funny to get set up, but man, what a great experience we had with our first guest.
You know, Kent was the perfect choice. Kent Vaughn, our first guest. You know how we talk about when we record the podcast, we forget some things that we talk about?
Yes.
And listening to him talk, I was like, oh gosh, that was great. You know, he had so many great things that just flew by that it didn't resonate until I got to listen to it. So.
Agreed. And I made that observation about walking away from our recordings and especially experienced that with Kent and feeling like I don't even know what we talked about with another podcaster.
Mm-hmm.
And that podcaster said, well, Maggie, that's the sign of a good conversation.
I agree.
So we had a great conversation.
Great conversation. Again, we encourage you guys to go out to Kent's website. We've already published those links on our website, candorandcourageatwork.com. So, you know, please check him out. He has such great offerings. And thank you, Kent, again, for 2 great episodes.
Really appreciate it. And it's going to be a hard act to follow. At some point in time, we'll tee up and engage with another guest, but I'm sure glad to be back and talking with you about Candor and Courage at Work, Denise.
Me too.
So what's up today?
So I am going to issue a warning. Today's topic is high stakes candor. This is a topic that Maggie and I have talked about doing ever since we came up with the podcast, Candor and Courage at Work. Because you get the basics of candor, we've gone through that on the episodes, but what about those situations where you are talking to somebody or you need to be candid with somebody whose relationship is so key to you or your team or your organization that the thought of losing that relationship gives you pause when you need to be candid?
That really is high stakes. And I think the questions that we've gotten, listener questions that we've gotten along the way, some of those that we've answered, some of those we haven't tackled yet in episodes, really are getting at just that. And we tend to think about the high stakes in the work environment as being like our boss.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that was my initial concept of high stakes candor. But it also, and I'll share a story with you a little further in the podcast about how important those close relationships are when we're very close to somebody because we've worked together a long time. Now, that can be a coworker, a peer, that can be a member of your staff. It could even be a vendor. I mean, there's so many relationships that are valuable in the workplace. And when you have to give that person who you've known for 10, 20, maybe even 30 years in the workplace, when you have to give them candor and you have to figure out, okay, how am I going to deliver the feedback that I know they need to hear without ruining the relationship?
Exactly. And that kind of gets at the questions that we tackled in prior episodes, but way, way beyond hurting their feelings because these folks really do impact your livelihood in some way.
In some way, right. In different ways, but it's all high impact. So I called this episode, I think in the early days, Candor 201 maybe.
Yes, I think so.
We've covered Candor 101 in prior episodes, but now we're into Candor 201. So I had to think long and hard about this episode because our listeners are going to hear me talk and I want to guide them. I don't want them to come back and go, well, I'm never listening to Maggie and Denise again because Denise got me fired today.
Right. Yeah.
So she doesn't know what she's talking talking about?
So I know Denise gave that warning early on. I'm just the one that's occurring to me is don't try this at home. But our encouragement, the whole point of the podcast is to enable folks to recognize that they can build their skills around candor and courage. And today we're talking about one because the stakes are high that's going to require more thoughtfulness,
Yes.
more intentionality, more pausing, and so forth than any conversation we've had around candor before.
Yes. And I also want to go back a little bit because I have refined some of my definitions of candor since we first launched the podcast. And my latest definition of candor is respectful candor, which we have talked about in the past. But I've been using this phrase in the definition, and that is where I'm going to prioritize the other person's success over my temporary discomfort.
I love that.
Because the discomfort is the obstacle that keeps me from speaking to them in ways to help them grow and develop. And so the other side of that is, one side is brutal honesty. So Maggie,
which I'm learning.
We won't talk. I don't think many people, except the woman I'm looking at right now, practices brutal honesty as a default candor position. That's not true.
I'm getting
she's
better.
Not always brutally honest, but I've appreciated it. But no, I'm on the other side of this, and we talked about my peer back in episode 3 or 4, I can't remember. But again, out on candorandcourageatwork.com. But my peer thought she was the ruinous empathy quadrant of Kim Scott's book, Radical Candor. And I'm changing that quadrant, that title, because this is the one that I see most in my daily work life. And that is silent avoidance.
And that is exactly what is just endemic in leadership ranks.
Right. And so you and I have talked over time. What do people think they are doing? How do they see themselves when they are silently avoiding giving candid feedback?
Well, I go back to what your parents said. If you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yes, you're being nice.
Right.
And so I've been talking in my professional life about a revolution, a candor revolution.
Okay.
And I want us to not be nice.
Good.
I want us to be kind.
Indeed.
And you brought forth the book, and I actually heard it on another radio show, Brene Brown's book, Dare to Lead.
Right.
And how she talks about candor being kind.
Clear is kind.
Clear is kind. That is correct. I'm sorry, Brene.
Yeah.
But so the candor revolution is we're not going to be nice. We're going to be kind.
Love it.
And kind means I'm going to prioritize you and your growth and development over my temporary discomfort. I am not going to avoid where I see you falling off the road.
I think that's ideal. And that temporary discomfort, overcoming that is a form of overcoming fear. So that is courage.
Yes.
We've talked always about the tie-in that it takes courage to be candid, and that temporary discomfort at the heart of it is the fear.
Yes. All right. So the crux of our episode today is how can I be candid with these key relationships in my life and not risk losing the relationship?
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get started, I want to address what I think is the number one obstacle when it comes to being candid, and your brand of being candid. And that is what I'm going to call coasting.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
So I will share with you that I am not an athlete at all. I mean, I'm tall. I should have been a great volleyball player or basketball player.
Right?
I think my physical stature, I was recruited for those things, but I'm a miserable athlete. So when I say that I rode a bicycle, back in the 70s, that was our mode of transportation around the neighborhood, right? And so when my friends and I would go on these long bike rides, right, you'd have the great hills in the neighborhood, and we would go up the hill. And I remember huffing and puffing and struggling to get up that hill. because in my mind, I knew coming home meant we are going to go down that hill.
Coasting.
Coasting. And I am not going to have to work that hard. Okay.
Yep.
And so I would sit back and enjoy the ride, and I would let that bike coast for as long as it could go before the motion required my feet to pedal again.
Gotcha.
I wanted to just enjoy the ride, not work that hard, and there you go. And coasting is what I see in the workplace. I see it in the form of complacency, where it's good enough to keep going. We don't need to do anything different.
Nothing needs to change, right?
Nothing needs to change. And so my fear for you guys is that with these high stakes relationships where you need to be candid, is that you're going to want to do that silent avoidance thing and just coast.
Sure.
And just let's just keep things the way they are. I'm happy with the relationship. I don't want to lose it. But again, that is your number one obstacle, is avoiding coasting through that relationship and not helping that person.
Well, and to that end, both of us have worked in human resources and in leadership long enough to put a number on it. So let's put a number on it. I'm guessing 75 to 80% of leaders could be labeled conflict avoidant.
75 to 80. I'm there. I'm there.
Yeah. And so they don't intend to coast. I mean, they might be great leaders in other ways, but maybe they have become complacent when the silent avoidance means that they're not having to pedal. Right? They're just not having to pedal. It's comfortable. It's okay. We don't really need to change anything. And that's really it. It is easy.
Yeah, it's comfortable. It's easy. I know what I'm doing.
Yep. Yeah.
So.
But I also know that success hides a lot of sins.
Oh, I love that. Would you repeat that?
Yes. Success hides a lot of sins. So even our most effective leaders that find that it's far more comfortable to coast or to silently avoid disruption by being candid think that it's okay because they've been successful.
Correct.
And so why change?
Why change? Yeah. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Right.
So, but there does come a point when the rubber meets the road, the bicycle tire meets the road, and you're going to you may be asked a question and you're going to have to be candid. You're either going to live up to that candor, like we've talked about in our previous episodes, again, on candorandcourageatwork.com. But when I talked about candor in those episodes, my number one thing was you got to commit to it.
Yes.
That you need to become comfortable with it, practice it, but you had to say, I am going to be candid with people.
Yeah. And that's your brand. That's part of what I recognized very, very early on in our relationship that I admired deeply as I continue to, lo, these many years later, break out of the brutal honesty and really, really grasp and begin practicing being candid. But you're right. Sometimes you're simply put on the spot.
Yes. And that is one of the stories I want to share with you today. I'm in my office. I'm plugging along, doing work, and my boss comes in. Not my current boss. Not my current boss. I had a boss. I've had many bosses over the years, but my boss came into my office and was perplexed by a problem that he had seen in the organization. And now I'm known as being candid. And again, I want to pause here and qualify. I didn't come out of the gate this day, and that was the first time I was candid with him.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I had been building the relationship like I talk about. That's the key element in before you can be candid. So he had come to me this particular day and asked me why a problem existed in the organization.
Wow.
And I would love to give you more context around that. But the reality is things were not being done to his standards.
That's sufficient perspective because a lot of us can relate to that.
Right, right. And I should clarify, he didn't ask me why things are the way they are.
Okay.
He made a comment and he was depicting for me a situation of where things were substandard for him.
Gotcha.
Okay. And he didn't ask me my opinion, but I'm sitting there thinking, he's standing in front of me. He knows me as being a candid person. I'm pretty sure he wants me to tell him. And so I had that moment of, are we going here? Are we doing this?
Right.
This man controls my position in the company, the
Sure.
raise I'm going to get, maybe a promotion I'm going to get, whether I get to come to work tomorrow. So
that's really high stakes.
So my mind kind of goes through it, but you're the self-professed queen of candor, Denise. So
Yep.
It's time to live up to your brand, because that's why he's here. At least that's what I'd made up in my mind. That's why he was here. So I went on to paint a picture of this particular situation, and it happened to be something I saw myself. So again, when I go through those basic candor rules of state facts and observations, not opinions, because we can deal with facts much easier than labels or just guesses at why things are the way they are. So I stated, this is why I believe based on these observations or facts.
Okay.
And I wish I could go into the depth of the example, but what in essence happened was, by quoting the facts, what I was saying to him was, your standards, you're allowing your standards to be lower than what you say you want.
Yeah. And then, folks, the high stakes got very, very real.
Yes. And again, it was not in my intention to call out my boss, but at the end of the day, we're all responsible for what happens under our watch.
Right.
And so it was like that cartoon where you could see the word cloud coming from my mouth, and I'm going, come back, come back. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
So I said it, and he was silent. And my mind was like, well, let's see. When was the last time I updated my resume?
Right.
It's been really great working here. Silence for me is deadly,
It is for all of us.
And he just kind of gave me a nod, like, okay, I understand what you're saying. And he more or less left. Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, oh gosh, have I made a huge mistake? Okay. But I could tell he's the type of person, or was the type of person, that wants to contemplate things, wants to let it marinate, let it just kind of settle. But with the silent, I'm sitting there going, oh gosh.
I'm filling in the blanks, and it's always the worst case scenario.
Always the worst case scenario. So what I will cut to the chase here, he ended up in a meeting, and he ended up addressing things are not being done the way I need them to be, to my standard.
Okay.
And he used the examples, actually used pictures of the examples that I had quoted to him of what I had seen within the organization.
Wow.
And so later on, I got a message from him. It was actually a note. And he said, what you said to me is sometimes hard to hear, but I really appreciate that you were candid with me.
Amen.
And so I exhaled.
Right? Because there was a point in time between the silent thank you nod kind of thing and then the arrival of that.
And it wasn't overnight, I can tell you
that.
I'm
sure it wasn't.
It wasn't. And he was, again, when I met with him in the hallway or in other situations, there was no awkwardness. He wasn't avoiding me, not making eye contact like, hey, you're about to lose your job here. But it did in my stomach cause a moment of, have I made a mistake? And so the lesson that I learned from that is candor, again, if it's my brand, and I believe it is, and I want it to be my brand, that I really, really need to do what people expect of me and trust me to deliver, and that is to be candid.
Yeah, that's part of maintaining your credibility. So, are there any tips or tricks that you might suggest when you're really in the high stakes situation?
Yeah, I mean, I go back again to the basic rules. So again, I encourage you to go through those again. But I believe in these high stake relationships, there's two things that I would caution our listeners on. Number one, you really need to assess if a person is ready for candor.
Oh, that's a good point.
And if I, in that interaction with my former boss, if I had taken time to assess, is he ready? I might not have given him candor in that moment.
Okay.
And that's another tip for folks is it's okay to ask for time to consider your answer.
I love that because I like being prepared. So I'm not sure
Yes.
I could respond off the cuff in the way that you did.
Yeah, and I believe that if I'd been smarter, if I could go back in time, I might have done that. But again, the examples I were giving were just right there in
Sure.
everybody's face,
Sure.
so it wasn't that hard to cite examples. But given his response, maybe the next time I would ask for a moment to contemplate my answer and then give it to him.
I like that.
I don't know, though, that the opportunity would have existed the way it did,
Right.
because bosses get busy and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Sometimes you are in the position where you just have to capitalize on the opportunity that's presented.
Right. And again, I think that brand is he was looking for that answer. So I don't know if he would have accepted a delay in it. But I do encourage you, especially if you're new to candor, that you ask for that pause. And then finally, I would say is with these high stake relationships, you need to consider how much candor you need to give. How much is appropriate?
Okay.
Okay. Could I have sat there with him? I gave him like one or two examples of what I had observed in the organization. But could I have given him a lot more? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Would that have made his own discomfort with being the root of the problem any better? No. So just giving him those few examples was enough
Mm-hmm.
to paint the picture for
Yep.
him
Yep.
of what the root cause was, AKA him.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
And therefore enough for him to move forward and be effective in his decision making.
I love it. I love it. And I really think that context around high stakes candor and being so mindful and intentional when it's somebody that so directly impacts your livelihood is a completely different level. It is Candor 201.
Correct. I mean, there's probably another episode just around, people that are close to us and how do you address underperformance or things that they're doing. So that could be a
There you
future
go.
episode.
Future
right there.
episodes.
So,
Yeah. So thanks for giving us the insights and sharing the stories around thinking about preparing for and practicing high stakes candor today.
Yes, and please give us your stories, your questions. We're happy to answer, any questions, give advice. And so we'll look forward to some more feedback with our listeners.
Excellent. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today for Candor and Courage at Work.
We hope you found some inspiration and encouragement in today's episode.
For more information or to connect with us, visit our website, candorandcourageatwork.com, and be sure to download future episodes wherever you listen.